So I'd suggest that as a very little child, I mean really little, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, you were already understanding things about the world through science. If you were looking at a tree and saw all the leaves blowing and moving around, and it's just little 5-year-old you, and this lady comes by and she says to you, "You see all those leaves blowing? You know what's causing that, don't you? There are tiny little fairies standing behind each of those leaves and just shaking and shaking them. And there's one behind each of the leaves, and that's what's making that shake around." I think at 5 years old, you might have said, "Oh, thank you." But in your mind, you probably would have said, "It's the wind, you idiot," even at 5. So you began life understanding what was going on through that lens of science, and particularly this principle of science, which is cause and effect. Hence, as you look at something that has happened, that something has caused it. If you see the branch has fallen from a tree that you've seen before, and you notice the difference, you might not know what caused the branch to fall, but you know that there was something that happened, whether you can identify it or not, and this thing that happened then caused that thing to occur. Yes, you knew that even when you were little. And you understood that because really that's how things were explained to you. And I would say that your view of understanding science, particularly cause and effect, began very early in life. But although you were learning to understand things through science, the thing that you were not understanding through science, the thing that you weren't understanding that way, was yourself. Because when it came to understanding yourself, you were not, as that child, encouraged to look through that lens, but a completely different lens than science and cause and effect. You understood your own self based on credit, blame, pride, and shame. Good boy. Such a good boy. Or, I am so disappointed in you. What a bad girl. So, what I'm thinking of as moralistic thought, understanding occurrences based on credit, blame, pride, shame, was how you learned to understand you and then other people. Why did he do that, Mom? Because he was a very bad boy. Why did the branch fall from the tree? Well, something caused it. Well, like what? I don't know. Wind, or the way the wind interacted with the branch at a particular moment? Or did somebody cut it off. But you're not going to answer by saying bad branch or nasty tree, but understanding scientifically. So what I'd ask you to reflect on for a moment is, has this way of viewing things, the way you were taught, you didn't come up with it on your own. It's what you were taught as a child. Is the way you were taught to understand yourself and others based on credit, blame, pride, and shame been serving you? Now, I don't think any other life form ever thinks that things should not have happened, that have happened, or should have happened, that didn't happen. So I don't think goats or chickens or foxes are ever thinking that shouldn't have happened. I don't think that whales or peacocks are thinking, I shouldn't have done that, regardless of what the result is. As our human minds became much more advanced than all other life forms, that advancement gave us the ability to remember things, and then the way we were trained and taught to add meaning to things put memory together with moralistic thought. Did you ever believe that there was something you did that you shouldn't have done? Did you ever believe that there was something that somebody else did that he shouldn't have done? Might you be believing that now? So as our mind became more advanced, an advanced component was like built on top of the more primitive component. Because as mind is advancing, the primitive component is still doing things like circulation, digestion, respiration. He couldn't say, well, today I'm learning algebra, so I'm not going to bother with circulation. That had to keep going. And what that caused is that the advanced component built over it didn't integrate with the more primitive component. So you might be thinking something here, but feeling something else here. You might think, well, they're finding that sugar isn't so good for people, but I feel like having a piece of cake. So more advanced mind, primitive mind, getting twisted up together. But I want to come back to what I was saying, which is that if you have experienced a thought like, I shouldn't have done that, the primitive part of your mind figures that if you can think of it, it's possible. I don't think wolves are thinking, gosh, if I could fly, then I'd go kill some birds. But humans can certainly think of things that they can't do. I mean, think of science fiction. A ton of people reading and some people writing things that are constantly based on things that people don't think of as possible, but they can conceive of it and write about it and imagine it and get involved with it. So here's what happens. If she's thinking, he should not have done that to me yesterday. If she's thinking, he should not have done that to me yesterday, her mind, primitive mind, then believes that this is possible, even though here she certainly doesn't believe it's possible to cause anything to be different yesterday. But primitive mind is thinking, well, if she's conceiving of it, then of course it can happen. So primitive mind begins to try to cause her to do things differently previously. Have you ever tried doing something differently yesterday? But we also experience this feeling that others shouldn't have done what they did, or they should have done what they didn't do. I would bet that if you take a moment to try, you could bring one of those thoughts up. He should not have done that. Or I should not have done that. Or I should have done this. Or he should have done that. If that thought is there, then primitive mind believes that's possible and begins then causing emotion, sensation, thought, in order to get you to get someone else to act differently yesterday. If you're experiencing any kind of resentment toward anything anybody's ever done to you or something that they didn't do that you think they should have done, deeper mind is trying to get you to get him to act different previously. Now, here, consciously, rationally, logically, you know that as hard as you might try, you'll never get anyone to have acted different previously. As hard as you might try, you will never get yourself to act differently previously. But with that going on, and all I mean going on is the thought, it should have happened differently. Mind is busy trying to get it to have happened differently. And since that will never happen, then there's effort that's going out, emotional effort that's going out to cause something that will never happen. If you put effort into that, it will never happen. If you put effort into something that will never happen, if you spend time attempting to make things happen that don't happen, that causes a feeling of being weak. Weak causes a feeling of helpless. Helpless becomes hopeless. Helpless, hopeless, pretty frustrating. So helpless, hopeless, frustrated. Frustration is like on the anger spectrum. Like annoyance is on the anger spectrum. Frustration's on the anger spectrum. So now you've got helpless, hopeless, frustrated, angry. And that has created the witch's brew for what we call depression. And there are tons of people medicating themselves for what they're told is depression. And certainly there are people that are so depressed that they just like lay there because they can't motivate any kind of action. Their mind is busy trying to cause things to happen previously. No energy left to cause things to happen currently. But it doesn't, it's not that it always gets there. Frequently where it gets is a sense of, of unhappiness mixed with a sense of restlessness. Do you ever feel kind of the mood isn't very good, and yet there's a restless feeling? People who are living with that feeling sometimes are inclined to do anything to distract from it. So what's something somebody could do to distract himself from feeling blue and restless? Well, we can start a fight with somebody. We can get involved in some kind of road rage. All these things are quite effective in immediately reducing or eliminating this sense of restless unhappiness, while then causing feelings that are even worse. So perhaps you have noticed that you've been doing things that don't seem to work out well in the long run, but are pleasing in the short run. Like he really feels bad about being overweight. Solution: ice cream. What kinds of things have you been doing to find a immediate relief from something that then later it causes to become even stronger? So it seems to me that people who are suffering with this stuff are often drawn to anything that promises relief. And therefore, if you tell me about something and I tell you what I saw as you described it, it's probably going to be a bit different than what you're seeing, what you've been seeing. So that'll provide you with a different view. A different view will provide you with more information. Information, knowledge, knowledge, power. And I would very much like to increase your power, each of you, because as you become more powerful, then you cause things to be more the way you would like them to be. If things are the way you would like them to be, well, you probably feel better. If you feel better, you're probably going to treat people better. We could benefit from people treating people better. Have you checked today's headline? If you didn't get to see today's, you could just read yesterday's, and if you skipped both, look at tomorrow's.